start the meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of Full Council. Welcome also to those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn their mobile phones to silent and to ensure that when addressing the meeting, they speak directly into the microphones, ensuring that the red light is on. Moving now to Agenda 1. Can I ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you. We've had apologies from councillors Booth, Christie, Gerstner, Harris, Humphrey, Mockett, Patrick and Warwork. We are expecting Councillor Carney and Councillor Mrs Laws, but they may be late.
Thank you. Agenda item 2. The minutes of the meeting held 19th of May 2025 are shown on pages 3 to 14 of the agenda pack. I would like to move approval of the minutes. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Members, if you have any comments, then please raise your hand. No hands have been raised, therefore the minutes are approved. Thank you, the minutes are adopted. For information, you will find at pages 15 to 16 of the agenda pack a list of the civic engagements the Vice Chairman and I have attended in the weeks preceding Full Council. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you some important dates in the civic calendar. This year, my civic reception will take place at Garfield Community Hall and Sports Centre from 6:30 p.m. on the 19th of September, and my coffee morning in aid of Damsons will be in this chamber from 10 a.m. on the 23rd of October. I look forward to seeing as many of you at these events as possible, and thank you for your support. There are no announcements from the Chief Executive today. Agenda item 5 is to receive any declarations of interest under the Local Code of Conduct or any interest under the Code of Conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you raise your hand? No hands are raised, thank you. There have been no written questions submitted in accordance with Rule 8.6, and we will therefore proceed straight to questions under Rule 8.4. Councillor Booth has given his apologies for today's meeting and has instead nominated Councillor John Clark as his representative. Councillor Clark, you may now ask questions of the leader within the allotted time of 20 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. With no questions at this time, we would have had on the LGR, but that's an agenda item, so we're quite prepared to wait for that. Thank you.
Thank you. In accordance with Procedure Rule 8.1, members will find the Portfolio Holders Briefing Report on pages 17 to 70 of the agenda pack. Procedure Rule 8.2 permits questions to Cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio responsibilities, and members are reminded that there is a total time allocation of 1 hour for this item. Councillor Cutler, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for Councillor Bowden. Fenland Inspire is an excellent scheme to thank you, so thank you to everyone involved with it. Councillor Booth made comments at a previous council meeting about the projects favouring towns and not the rural villages. He asked whether anything will be done about the lack of play equipment at Murrow Playing Field. At Cabinet in June 2025, you stated that it was not currently financially prudent to pursue all the projects in the original list and outlined projects to focus on initially for further investigation and development. It would appear that the projects going ahead seem to be town-based. On the list is district-wide assessment of play equipment. So my question is, please can you confirm what stage the assessment is at? Because Councillor Booth and myself are very concerned about the neglected state of Morrow playing field. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'd like to thank Councillor Cutler for her question. I think that she was kind enough correctly to quote me. There have been others who haven't been quite so punctilious when I did say that it's not currently financially advisable to proceed with all the items which are in the Fenland Inspire programme. It's not only not currently financially advisable, it's also currently impossible to proceed with them all at once because there are so many of them. We just wouldn't have the capacity to be able to do them all in the first year. Don't forget, the idea behind Fenland Inspire was to provide a legacy for the people of Fenland from Fenland District Council to be enjoyed after this council ceases to exist. I think that Councillor Cutler is entirely correct to point out that many of the facilities which we are talking about are ones which are in the towns, and that's because when you do have facilities which are provided, such as leisure centres, they do tend to be within the towns rather than necessarily within the villages. Having said that, there are a number of schemes which do relate to areas outside the towns, and one which has been mentioned specifically by Councillor Cutler is the district-wide play equipment facilities which are provided. We only today at Cabinet, just a couple of hours ago, had a paper on that, moving that forwards, and it will move forwards, and we will most definitely be looking not merely at the towns, but also at the villages. In fact, we'll be looking specifically at those areas which are poorly served at the moment, and that, to be quite honest, is regardless of whether it's in towns and villages, although I'm well aware of one or two very specific examples where villages are clearly lacking in a facility which is really very valuable indeed. So that will be coming forward in a further report from Cabinet today. Officers will be producing. We are moving forward with that. The play equipment part of Fenland Inspire won't be a one-off. It will be all the way through, right through until we cease to exist, which we believe at the moment is March 2028. So it will happen everywhere. And I will keep an eye out to ensure that the areas which are not in the towns are not disadvantaged in the order in which things come forward. I can say no more than that because we haven't done the work yet, but I will make sure that, that the non-town areas are not disadvantaged. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden.
Councillor Hack.
I have 4 short questions, but I will make my last question the first question as it is related to the previous question. It is indeed an excellent idea, and the council are to be commended on making provision for the play equipment for children. These days, children get very little time for outdoor activities, and there is evidence that as a result, the health, with particular reference to the mental health of young people, is increasingly deteriorating. Therefore, it is imperative that we do our utmost to provide outdoor facilities for the youngsters. In that context, can I ask, please, that is the Station Road Recreation Ground in Whittlesea on the proposed list, as well as the beautiful villages of Coates, Eastry, Turves and Pondersbridge? If so, thank you very much. If not, why not? Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. The full list has yet to be completed. In fact, the full assessment is yet to be completed about where further work will be done. We are looking particularly in areas where there is currently no or little provision, or where the existing provision is clearly inadequate. I'm very well aware of the issues in Coates and Eastry, which I know will be on the list, Ponders Bridge, I don't know. I would certainly hope it is. If it does depend on what the current situation is there, and I'm not personally aware of it, but if it turns out that the provision which is there at the moment is inadequate, then it will be on the list. And if there is an area which does need provision which it doesn't have at the moment, that will be on the list as well. So far as Station Road is concerned, Station Road Rec is concerned, as Councillor Nawaz knows, because he was partly responsible for this, we did stop this from being sold only a few months ago, and it was going to be sold for development. And there is work to be done to ensure that the area is made available for the public in the long term, not merely for the next 3 years until this council ceases to exist. But uniquely among the play areas that we have in Fenland, the play area on Station Road Rec in Whittlesea has been subject to repeated and serious vandalism, really systematic vandalism, to the extent of having individuals, I'm not going to comment on their age, individuals getting motorbikes up to put chains around the equipment and chains around the rubber matting to tear it all up. And this has happened time and time again, to the extent that probably it is the least advantageous place to put further facilities in, because clearly it is located in such a place that it is susceptible to vandalism. Very nearby, there is and will continue to be other facilities available, particularly on the Manor Leisure Centre, which is immediately adjacent. But I have to say that although it is very much up to this council ultimately when matters come before it as far as Fenland and Spire is concerned, whilst it is up to this council and up to Cabinet, I don't think that there's an enormous amount of appetite from officers or from local members to putting more money into something which has been vandalised so often, so repeatedly, and so destructively.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Leader, for that reply. I'm grateful to you for including the recreation ground to be passed on to the Whittlesea Town Council, I believe, on a long-term lease, if that is what you were alluding to. If not, please correct me. However, coming back to the play equipment in that area, I recognise that there have been past instances and there is a history of vandalism in that particular place. But please tell me of a place where there hasn't been vandalism. Only recently in Coates Green, there was a damaged slide, and I spoke to corresponding with one of the senior officers here, who felt that it was vandalism, and I felt that no, it was probably youngsters with heavy boots running up a very thin plastic slide. However, he differed, quite rightly, citing an incident in Wisbech, which had also been vandalised. So, do we do the same with all the places, that is, not replace the equipment damaged because it has been vandalised? If not, then why not? We should treat all the places the same. With particular reference to Station Road, I think the better option may be to pursue the amelioration of vandalism, to work with the local community and the police. And I think that there is a history that when we work with the communities and with the police, these things can come under control. That would be my suggestion. To do the contrary, I think would be perceived as a collective punishment to the community just because of a few idiots, and give me a village where there aren't one or two idiots. So I would suggest that this be reviewed, please, because we are, at the end of the day, a council which represents people's little hopes, their aspirations, and we are there to facilitate the smooth running of communities and not put obstacles in the way. I understand this is taxpayers' money, and we have been very, very careful with it throughout. I sit on a number of committees, and I know how carefully we scrutinise public money expenditure. However, we are spending this on the taxpayers or their children. And our children are our future. We need a healthy, mentally and physically healthy younger generation. So, I mean, this is, as the leader quite rightly said, that I am intimately familiar with that particular area, and I know what people's feelings and their opinions are. And if I may put the other side of the coin to this council, walking down the streets, day, night, every day, weekends, during the week, I come across lots of young people. I honestly mean lots of young people. They are as nice as you could expect them to be. They exchange courtesies, they are polite. So why should they be punished just because of a few idiots? Why not work with the parents, with the community, and with the police to bring this under control and listen to the people? And I would end this. Vox populi, vox Dei. Voice of the people is voice of God. Ignore it at your peril. Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not quite sure what the question was there, but to respond to the comments which have been made, and they're heartfelt comments, and I fully appreciate that and fully understand it. It is absolutely the case, I'm very sorry to say, that vandalism isn't restricted to the Station Road wreck in Whittlesea. We see vandalism all over the place. I'm not saying that every single play area we have is vandalised, but I would be surprised if there are many which are not. But there's vandalism and there's vandalism. And the extent to which that vandalism has taken place, the number of times it's taken place, completely wrecking the equipment which has been placed there at the cost of thousands of pounds at a time, the extent to which that has happened at Station Road wreck is far greater than anywhere else in the whole of, not just of Whittlesea, but in the whole of Fenland. And it comes to the stage eventually where a decision has to be made. If facilities are provided and they are vandalised again and again and again, at what point do you say it's just not worth continuing to provide the facility? And in this particular case, there are alternative play facilities available, not across a road, not a million miles away, but in the adjacent manor leisure area where there is a play equipment which is available. I don't like the idea of withdrawing any facility anywhere, but ultimately choices have to be made. Look at what happens with public toilets all around the country. With repeated vandalism which has happened, the number of public toilets which have been made available by local councils has reduced time and time again. And ultimately, if the community as a whole fails to ensure that a facility continues to be in good operational standing, then decisions will be made based on cost. And yes, we could replace the facility there. How long will it last? 6 months? 9 months? 6 weeks? On the basis of past performance, it has to be said, we've probably given the Station Road wreck one chance more, maybe, than we really financially should have done. Having said all of that, a comment was made by Councillor Nawaz at the beginning of his question about the future of Station Road wreck itself. That is a matter for the future. It's a matter which I'm personally quite committed to ensure that it doesn't end up being sold off for housing, as is very likely potentially to be the case otherwise after local government reorganisation. And I look forward to working with Councillor Nawaz and with others to ensure that that land and other similar land around the district is protected where it has a valuable community use. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Nawaz.
The questions on the report, if I may. This particular one refers to the leisure centres. There has been a drop of 3%, despite an increase of 2% in the swimming pools in attendance. That it has been attributed to unseasonably hot May. Be that as may, as it may. Now, that in itself is not a major worry. The major worry is when you read the rest of the report. For example, the feedback has been quite mixed. There have been complaints about the equipment, the quality of equipment, the size of the gym, the size of fees. The average score is 13 compared to the national score, which I assume refers to the facilities quality and so on, is 21. And the report envisages year 25-26 as a target year to bring that score up to 21. I would like to know, what is the plan to do that? How would it be monitored? And can the council be presented with progress in 6 months' time, please? Thank you.
As Councillor Walworth is not here today, Councillor Burden, could you answer, please?
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Where we are talking about the quality of services provided, the quality of cleaning and so on to do with individual leisure centres, that's an appropriate thing to take up with Councillor Walworth, and I would encourage any complaints that you receive from members of the public, or which you have yourselves as members of this council, I would encourage, Chairman, those complaints to go to Councillor Walworth for her to feed that through the system. But in terms of what we are offering, and I can't say that 6 months is a timescale which is going to be satisfactory to Councillor Nawaz here, but certainly in terms of 3 years, what we are offering is the biggest investment in leisure centres that there has ever been in this area. We are talking about literally tens of millions of pounds being spent to improve the leisure centres that we've got and to increase facilities which exist right across the district. So I can't promise that results will be seen in 6 months. In fact, they won't be seen in 6 months, I can actually promise that. But by the time that this council ceases to exist, which we believe is going to be March 2028, the facilities which will be provided in our leisure centres here in this district will be substantially better than they are now. I'm not going to promise quick fixes. Quick fixes are very difficult. To the extent that they are operational matters, Councillor Walworth is the right person to push that through with Freedom Leisure. But as far as the larger picture is concerned, I don't think that, Councillor Nawaz, you would want us to spend more than the tens of millions of pounds we're currently talking about spending. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Davis, please.
I think it's quite pertinent to Councillor Nawaz's questions that Freedom Leisure was on the very recent overview and scrutiny panel, and all those questions and more were answered quite adequately and quite fairly, I feel. So just for members to note that we are keeping an eye on things anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. I only have 2 more questions, Madam Chair. This one refers to the health check stations, which currently is situated in Wisbech. Now, given the government's emphasis on the 3 planks of the 10-year NHS plan, the emphasis on prevention is one of them. And public health is going to be a very important factor in that, according to the information being given out by the government. Now, the health station in Wisbech is a commendable effort. It is going to help enormously in early detection and at least the tentative first-line investigations into stroke, diabetes, hypertension. All of these are kind of silent killer diseases with lots and lots of complications. And I think, I'm not going to enumerate all the virtues of this. I think further on, probably on page 30, Councillor Tierney's section, he has done that. What my question is, can this facility please be replicated in all the Fenland towns, given that Fenland has an enormous health disparity, suffers from health inequalities, whatever metric you use. Thank you.
Councillor Tierney?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Nawaz. I think everything that we do in one area, we do try to replicate elsewhere where it's financially possible. The only thing I would add to what you just said is, I'm sorry to get on my high horse, but this business of health disparities, I challenge it quite a lot at County Council too. And let me explain why. I think we shouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about the difference between the least and most healthy, and we should instead be trying to help everyone to be healthier. And I know that seems like a small thing, but I actually think it matters, because you could make the disparity smaller by making the people most healthy less healthy, and then the two groups would get closer together, but that's obviously not what we want. I think we shouldn't worry about the difference between different groups, because sometimes that is about personal choices, and freedom matters. People should be free to choose how they live their lives, even if it's not always what we might think is best for them. So what I try to always say in regards to this is that if we can work on information and help people to understand what will make them healthier, then they can make the choices they want to, and I think automatically that will make everyone healthier. Sorry to go on a bit of a high horse there, but that does matter to me. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay, item 8 on the agenda is a motion on notice from Councillor Taylor, which appears at pages 71 to 72 of the agenda pack. Councillor Taylor, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will then be when summing up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, obviously, this motion was put through quite some time ago, so realistically, it is a bit of an update for all, and to re-motion some slight wording changes. So the response we got back from the FSA and DEFRA at the last motion was that we have got no intentions of changing food labelling systems. So we put a freedom of information request in, stating 2 very simple questions. I would like a list of slaughterhouses approved for religious slaughter, and also I would like a list of specific indications of which are approved for non-slaughter. And the response was basically what we expected from government. The FSA does not hold information with respect to the first part of your request. The information requested in the second part of your request is held by the FSA, but is being withheld from disclosure under section 38. So they've got a list of what abattoirs kill non-stun, but they haven't got a list of all. So to make typical FSA results. So we've done a lot of digging, and I mean an horrendous amount of work on this. And I've been in touch with like the state, the Halal Standards Authority, the Halal Standards Board, and their slaughter method states, and I'm not going to go into too much graphic detail, that they do not condone pre-stun slaughter. That must be basically throat slit. Although some abattoirs are permitted to pre-stun, but the animal must be fully conscious and awake before bleeding. So basically the animal gets double bubble. But if you look on things like the Halal Standards Board, the Halal Standards Agency, normal companies can be members of. And the very short list is Kellogg's, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Warburton's, Kingsmill, Marmite, Corn, Wrigley, Coca-Cola, Cadbury, Mars, Golden Wonder, Mr. Kipling, Lions, Foxes, Pepsi, Colgate, Fairy Liquid, Kerry, KFC, McCain, Ben & Jerry's, Kinder, Treeball, Halls. The list is massive. And all of those items carry the little logo on the back of halal. Why isn't meat labelled if every other product is? So the big argument and the true legalities of this is that if they say this is not halal, they cannot have the halal method exemption. If they argue it is halal, they are not allowed to sell it to non-Muslim or kill for non-Muslim. So by doing this, we're actually working for all people so they know what indeed they are purchasing. So the actual motion for today is that meat slaughtered in this country and packaged for sale, primarily in our supermarkets, has a slaughterhouse code prominently printed with an oval shape on the packaging. The slaughterhouse code shows at which abattoir the animal was killed. But some of the abattoirs use a halal-approved slaughter method. Others stun the animal before slaughtering it. But as we've just heard, the animal has to be fully conscious and awake. That's the smokescreen that I was talking about the first time I motioned this. The slaughterhouse codes are not well publicised, but neither are they secretive or restricted. So consumers in Finland and elsewhere are not well served by the current method of displaying slaughterhouse codes. Religiously observant Muslims cannot easily tell if supermarkets and other shop meat has been slaughtered in accordance with halal requirements. And those residents who have ethical objections to consuming halal meat cannot easily tell whether or not the animal was stunned before slaughter. To promote the interest both of religiously observant Muslim residents and those residents with an ethical objection to non-stun slaughter, FDC calls upon DEFRA to change the labelling requirements for meat so that slaughterhouse codes for those slaughterhouses which kill in accordance with halal requirements are preceded with the letter H in front of the abattoir code. Something as very simple as that would allow all people to actually have their choice and know what they're purchasing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Foyce-Beard, thank you. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now?
No, at the end, please. Thank you.
Thank you. The item is open for discussion and members are reminded that they are each able to speak once. Councillor Carney, Carney.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I personally would be supporting this motion wholeheartedly, purely in the spirit as in recent years, as people become more aware about the provenance of their food, food miles and that sort of thing, but more to the point is people's dietary requirements, things like vegan-friendly products, gluten-free products, and I would actually probably go one better than just having an H in the oval and actually having a sort of a recognised logo for halal-friendly products, very much in the same spirit as gluten-free products, vegan-friendly products, vegetarian-suitable products. So just on that, I think in the spirit of that alone, I think that probably could be one that definitely could actually take one better. Thank you.
Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to be supporting the motion. I think it's always better to have more information for consumers, regardless of who they are or what their reason for consuming is. So more information is never a bad thing. But I would be dishonest if I didn't make the same point now that I made at County Council last week, which is that I get a bit frustrated with motions whose only action, the only action they can take is to write a letter to government, to virtue signal, if you like, to government. Now, I know that this motion comes from a good place and I will be supporting it, and I know we don't do this very often, so it's not as bad as county where it seems to be every motion. But I would just encourage members to think about, when they write motions, if there's something we can actually do within our powers rather than just write to government, because I frankly don't think government listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hay, please.
Thank you, Chair. I too will be supporting this motion. I'm very much against any unnecessary suffering to animals and do believe by not stunning the animal beforehand, they do suffer. And quite frankly, I can't understand if DEFRA is against this motion, because I think it helps people on both sides of the equation, whether they be Muslim or not. So yes, very good, well-written motion.
Thank you. Councillor Senate Clough.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Taylor's summing up, he may be able to provide some more information. Like Councillor Hay, I'm against any unnecessary suffering to the animal. However, I've got a couple of questions which sort of piggyback really on what Councillor Tierney was saying. I'm wondering if we're making noise in the right room, whether, not to undermine Fenland District Council, but whether they've got the levers to actually lobby DEFRA, whether Councillor Taylor has spoken to those that may have stronger leverage. My other question was about, I am concerned that Councillor Taylor is singling out halal practices, and that may be seen as targeting a specific group. If we open the door to this motion based on one set of religious practices, in fairness, should we not be proposing it for all? Where does it stop? I think what I'm saying is it's a complex path that needs to be addressed, I think, through national consultation and wider public engagement. And so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the issue does lie firmly within the remit of national government and DEFRA. And I'm not against supporting this motion, but I just question whether the District Council has strong enough levers to enact this motion through.
Thank you. Councillor Noise.
Thank you. I absolutely agree, endorse the points raised by Councillor Senate Clough as well as Councillor Tierney. I think it goes without saying that all of us would oppose any unnecessary suffering inflicted on the animals that we eat one way or another. And therefore, I think halal meat as a procedure, as a process, has certain very strict conditions. And I wonder how many of us are aware of those conditions in order to prevent unnecessary cruelty or suffering to the animals. That said, and I think we would have been, doing ourselves a favour by doing more research into the exact methodology and the processes, the do's and the don'ts of halal meat. Secondly, I echo the point made by Councillor Senate Clough that the way that this motion has been presented, it would appear that we are singling out one particular group. And that may well affect the credibility of the good and the noble cause that we are trying to pursue. I mean, for example, would this apply to kosher meat? That also has a certain ritual attached to it. That also receives blessings to make it edible. And you may not be surprised that halal people can also eat kosher. I'm not too sure about vice versa. But I do recall an incident with a Jewish friend of mine. We were together in Marks and Spencer. We both had halal. And I have no hesitation in having kosher at all. So that is one point. The other point is raised by Councillor Tierney. It is an important point. How effective is this going to be? Are we just going to raise flags that this is what we are and this is what we believe in, and try maybe unintentionally end up alienating unnecessarily groups that may feel that this is an unfair motion, may it be an idea perhaps to consult experts on both halal and kosher and find out exactly how they do things, educate ourselves, and then present the motion by all means. Finally, just on a point of clarification, is Councillor Taylor seeking a simple labelling process that halal should have H on it and non-halal should not have halal on it? My information is that yes, it would benefit both, but as far as I'm aware, the halal is always marked. If it is not marked, the Muslims just won't buy it. If they go to halal shops, there's a big certificate in the back wall, visible to all, saying that this is halal and it is certified by such and such national authority. It may also be stamped on the meat itself. So I'm not sure how much benefit it would be to the Muslim community. However, I would agree that the non-halal eaters, they also have valid points, they also have valid rights, that they should know that it is halal or not. But as I have said, that any meat, certainly I don't want to sort of advertise commercial enterprises, but I know Asda, for example, has it labelled, they buy it from a national halal butchers, they also have a counter juxtaposed with the non-halal in their local stores. And all of this, all the halal meat, as far as I'm aware, is already labelled. The non-halal is not. So it may serve some purpose in labelling the non-halal as non-halal. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. I think I just need to make a quick response to the comments just been made by Councillors Senate Clough and Nawaz. The situation, as I understand it, is rather more complicated than has been suggested. As far as kosher slaughtered meat is concerned, that is slaughtered at general, ordinary slaughterhouses, and it's not separately slaughtered in a slaughterhouse only for kosher meat. However, as far as halal meat is concerned, that is only able to be slaughtered and able to be sold from slaughterhouses which just slaughter their meat in accordance with halal practices. And that's the reason why it is easier, and in fact it is quite easy, to indicate which are the halal slaughterhouses by including the letter H in the oval than would otherwise be the case, for example, with kosher meat. But in terms of consumer choice, just as anyone who doesn't want to, who has an ethical objection to halal meat, should be able to have a guarantee that the meat is not slaughtered in that way, so should anyone who wants to have or needs to have, for religious purposes, halal meat, be able to go into their local supermarket and be able to see from the joints of meat which are packaged in front of them which ones are halal. It's a matter of consumer choice. And why this consumer choice is being denied or restricted is really quite beyond me. I see no reason for that restriction. Let me make a personal point about this. I don't really have a personal axe to grind on it. If I saw in front of me two identical pieces of meat, one of which was halal and the other wasn't, the one I'd buy would be the cheaper one. I wouldn't be bothered about it. I don't have ethical objections to halal personally, but I know that other people do. And I also know that there are those individuals who cannot, for religious reasons, do anything else but to buy halal meat. And those rights, those choices should be respected, and we should encourage people to be able to exercise those choices properly. This motion, however, I've been on this council, for 10 years now, and to the best of my knowledge, for the first time, in this case as leader of the council, I've received a letter from a member of parliament about this very motion. And it does go to show that sometimes what we do here in our local council can actually attract attention from beyond the confines of Finland. And I'll read the letter out, or most of the letter out. It's from Rupert Lowe, who's the independent MP in Great Yarmouth, congratulating us on being what is, he believes, the only council in the country to have a farming committee, which is something he'd like to see more often, and saying he's been working with Tim Taylor for some time on the religious slaughter issues in this country, and that his research and information has been invaluable in the fight to highlight issues surrounding halal. But he hopes to be able to bring those to task who've been abusing regulations, where those regulations have been flouted. We, of course, are not talking here about the abuses of any regulations there may be, whether that be in halal or non-halal settings. What we're talking about is simple labelling. And if all we are talking about is giving consumers the opportunity and the right to see what it is they're buying, if that's important to them, if that's what we're doing, I really don't see the harm in it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Miskendler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Read the motion. I don't think it goes far enough because it's always mentioning halal. What about kosher? I know kosher has been mentioned. There are religious inclinations for the slaughter of meat under kosher. So I think this motion doesn't go far enough. It should include the labelling of kosher meat as well, because there are implications for people purchasing kosher meat if you're a devout Jew and you wish to have only kosher meat. So I don't think this motion goes far enough, and I'd like to see Councillor Taylor add the word kosher into this motion, because I think it is important to cover all aspects, and the two main ones are halal and kosher. And having lived in London in my younger years in the largest Jewish enclave in London called Stamford Hill, which a lot of people know about, where there were more Jews per square mile than Israel, it was important to those people that the meat that they bought in the local supermarkets was kosher. And I think that's why it's missing a trick, and it should include it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Are there any other councillors who've not already spoken who would like to speak? Okay. So, Councillor Foyce-Beard, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Thank you. I think everything's been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. So the reason we've not included kosher into today's statement is that we have still got a big ongoing investigation into that. What we have found is that traditional abattoirs kill kosher style once, twice a week. And knowing full well that the Jewish community only eat the front end of the cow down to the 10th rib, we do know that the back end then of the cow ends up into the supermarket and the human food chain. But because they're slaughtered in a traditional abattoir, they have that one traditional abattoir code. So that is something what myself and Rupert are digging big time on to try and highlight. At the moment, we cannot just find out just which abattoirs are killing kosher. But once that has been highlighted and we've found them all, that will be highlighted. Obviously, I've got a massive thank you to Rupert for taking this on. He's an absolute gent to work with and a pleasure to work with. We've also got our little spaniel on the ground that's doing all the videoing and digging for us, which is Catherine Blakelock. She is everywhere searching, digging, videoing and getting banned out of most supermarkets for videoing. Obviously, the supermarkets are trying to hide it and cover it and don't want us. So it is an ongoing thing that we're going to be working on for a long time. And if we can nibble away one bit at a time on it, then we're going to gain the right results. You know, I have live streamed this afternoon, and at the moment I'm up to about 15,000 comments on the social media channel, and the signal's been out for the last 5 minutes on it. So this is a worldwide thing that people really have got behind and have got issues with it and need it dealing with for all communities, not just us, but the Muslims and the Jewish communities as well. Let's get it highlighted, get it labelled properly so we know exactly what's what and the consumers have had a choice. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. Any abstentions?
Yes, we've got a vote here. We have 25 for the motion, 3 against and 5 abstentions. Thank you.
The motion is agreed. Agenda item 9. The Treasury Management Annual Review for 2024 to 2025 can be found at pages 73 of the agenda pack. I will now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader and portfolio holder with responsibility for finance to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to admit, it's a really regrettable fact that I have to admit, but sometimes one has to face reality. I have to admit that most members of this council, like most members of most councils, aren't particularly interested in Treasury management reviews. For me, it's one of the most interesting reports which is produced each year, because it really underlies the fundamentals about how we manage to support the services which we provide. But I know that most members in this chamber don't share my enthusiasm, nay, my passion for this particular issue. However, Madam Chairman, even I must admit that this year's report is just a little bit boring, because it is very much a case of steady as you go. And that is not actually a negative at all, because I was expecting in the year 24-25 that we'd have some slightly more difficult things to report. I was expecting at the beginning of the year that we'd have to start borrowing during 24-25. And I'm delighted to say, as the report makes clear, that we had no liquidity problems during the year and that it was not necessary for us to start borrowing in 24-25. I have every confidence that in 25-26 we will need to start borrowing, given what we're doing within Fenland Inspire. But for 24-25, astonishingly to me, no borrowing was required. And everything else was pretty much as expected. Our investment income was within 4% of what had been expected. Our property funds stayed approximately the same. They increased by £300,000. The interest rates, as we expected, they peaked in August 2024 and have been coming down since and are projected to go down further. So all in all, Madam Chairman, I have to say that I actually share what many members of this council may feel, that this report is not the most exciting, but let's be grateful that it's not. Because if it were exciting, if things were happening and they were difficult for us, then there'd be a lot to complain about. So I'm pleased that this report is as neutral as it is. I know that we are going to face greater challenges ahead as we look towards Fenland Inspire and what we're planning to do there, but I'm more than happy to propose this Treasury Management Annual Review, Madam Chairman. I think it shows how much hard work has been put in by officers all the way through the year to ensure that our finances are kept in the best state possible. We look at a regular basis, even sometimes daily, to make sure that we are putting our money, the extra money that we've got, in the right location in order to achieve the best amount of interest given the amount of time that we've got the money guaranteed for. We do a lot of work, officers do a lot of work behind the scenes in order to achieve this steady as you go report. So I'm more than happy to commend it to Council. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. French. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the conclusion? Thank you. The item is open for debate. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you. I hate to disagree with the leader yet again, but I do, it happens, share his enthusiasm for matters financial. And I have read it, Councillor Bowden, I must be, well, I better not use those adjectives. It is indeed gratifying that there is no deficit and that there hasn't been any, well, there is, but there hasn't been any borrowing, and that with particular reference to on point 2, the key issues, if we read the sentences 2 and 3 together, I think it is satisfactory, and for that reason, I would support this report and also echo the sentiments expressed. Here the raise of agreement with the leader, sentiments expressed by the leader about the hard work put into this by himself and by the officers concerned. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank the officers as well. Thank you very much, Madam.
Councillor French, would you like to? No, thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
No need, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The recommendation on page 73 of the agenda pack is for full council to note the report. Is that agreed? Yes. Thank you. Item 10 is an update in relation to local government reorganisation, and the report appears on pages 83 to 92 of the agenda. I will now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader and portfolio holder with responsibility for finance to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll try and be brief, but it's very difficult because it's another subject about which I'm quite passionate and very interested in. But this is the opportunity really for members of this council to discuss what has been in the press and on local social media for some time now, and that is the way in which local government is going to change locally. In December, Jim McMahon, the government minister, announced that all two-tier authorities were going to be abolished and be replaced by unitary authorities. And in the weeks and months since then, we've gradually received more information about how this is to take place. One of the things which has to be determined, needs to be determined pretty early on in the process, is what will be the boundaries for the new unitary authorities. And we started off by being told by Jim McMahon that all of these new unitary authorities would need to have a population, an electorate, a population of between 500,000 and 1 million. Then later, this number was downgraded to 300,000, quote, in exceptional circumstances, unquote. Not to my surprise, right around the country, everyone believes they've got exceptional circumstances and want the lower figure rather than the higher one, because people in the Shire counties want to keep their local government as local as possible. We're going to be losing the type of communication that we've got with our local electors as we are part of a local authority which is 4, 5, 6 times as large, maybe 7 times as large as we are now. And that really shows that government isn't interested in the local element of local government. But they're the ones in control, they're the ones in power, and they're the ones who are calling the shots. So what they have asked for is for every council which is going to be abolished to tell the minister, in our case no later than the 28th of November, what proposal they would prefer in terms of the makeup, the geographical area to be covered by the new unitary authority covering their area. And they've put various conditions in. I started off by contacting council leaders in southern Lincolnshire with an interest to how we might have more in common with them than certainly we have with Cambridge City. But unfortunately, government shut the door on the idea of anything crossing the border between Cambridgeshire and Lincolnshire, just as it also shut the door on anything crossing the border between Cambridgeshire and Norfolk. So we ended up with a situation where government told us, basically, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, you've got to sort yourselves out, but within the boundary of the existing combined authority. Given that, various leaders and chief executives and Section 151 officers from the various councils have spent a lot of time in a lot of meetings over a significant number of months discussing what the opportunities are, what the problems are, what is financially viable, what is not financially viable. And ultimately, we came to the conclusion that there were only 3 options which made any economic sense at all, and also made geographical sense. And those are the 3 options which are listed in the paper you've got in front of you: option A, option B, and option C. I won't go through them all because whilst I did have a very strong preference for one of these options at the very beginning, I'm much more open now to listening to the arguments about the other 2 options. So I'm not going to be here in front of you advocating one option rather than any other. But what we do need is a proposal which works for us, works for the people of Finland as best we can. And we do need to try and rescue, we need to try and protect this idea that local government should be, to some extent at least, local. The idea of a rural area such as us having a local authority with a population of 1 million is just absolute nonsense. And the way government is setting this up, we are going to end up with the ironic position that the rural areas in this country will have local authorities which are larger in population than the most urban parts of the country, the metropolitan boroughs in the north of England and London. London authorities aren't this large in many cases, but as far as the rural areas are concerned, the shire counties are concerned, government wants to see larger authorities which will by very definition be less local. There are all sorts of financial implications in all of this, but as I say, this is the opportunity, this motion is the opportunity for members of this council to have their say about what they think about this at this time. No decisions are yet being made, but we will, after this council meeting is finished, have a very short meeting of Cabinet just to reflect on the comments which have been made by members of this council. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. French. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve? Thank you. Before I open this item for debate, the recommendation at page 84 of the agenda pack is for full council to consider the 3 proposals and provide feedback to Cabinet to support ongoing dialogue within the LGR process. The content of the debate will therefore be fully minuted for that purpose. This item is now open for debate. Councillor Cutler, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the update on the 3 options, which have Fenland with Peterborough in all 3. The 4th option being put forward by Peterborough MPs for consideration. Is this likely to get off the drawing board before the November submission? Therefore, will have to be considered as well later on. Thank you.
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is true that the 2 Labour MPs in Peterborough have decided that they would prefer something different, and that's primarily from a Peterborough focus. And the proposal that they have is very interesting in that instead of there being 2 unitary authorities, there would be 3. Now, at the moment, there are two upper-tier authorities in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, that is, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And those upper-tier authorities are the ones responsible for the overwhelming majority of local government spend, that is, on children's social services, adult social services, and SEND, special education needs and disabilities spend. That accounts for some 80% of the total local government spend. And if, instead of having 2 upper-tier authorities, we have 3 in the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough footprint, that will just mean that in the area with the greatest amount of spend, we'll have a lesser amount of economy of scale available to us. So from a purely financial point of view, and from a sustainability point of view, it is a little bit concerning, especially if you see what areas have been divided up, as far as this is concerned, by the Peterborough MPs. Because we see that Fenland is put in with East Cambridgeshire, and with a slither of Huntingdonshire going from Ramsey down to, of all places, St Neots. St Ives would be included in our local authority, but Huntingdon wouldn't. Ramsey would be included in our local authority, but Sawtry wouldn't. It is a dog's dinner, to be quite honest, of a proposal. But what's worse is that local government reform in this area will force there to be, I'm sorry to say the word, disaggregation in Cambridgeshire County Council. That is, the assets, the liabilities, the responsibilities, the various items on the balance sheet which the county council has got will all need to be split up between at least two new unitary authorities. And that process of disaggregation is a massively complicated and difficult one. Northamptonshire, who had unitarisation imposed on them only 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they still haven't managed to get their disaggregation sorted out yet. It is a very complicated, very lengthy and very expensive process. But the Peterborough MPs want to disaggregate not merely Cambridgeshire County Council, they also want to disaggregate Huntingdonshire District Council. So that council's assets, liabilities, responsibilities would all also need to be split between two authorities. And if my understanding of their map is correct, they even want to split Huntingdon Town Council area between the two different authorities, part of it coming into ours in Brampton Ward, the rest going into what they call Greater Peterborough. So I'm sorry, I see that proposal by the Labour MPs as being one which is absolutely determined by a very Peterborough-centric attitude rather than looking at the interests of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough as a whole. And I have severe doubts that it would get through Peterborough City Council when eventually it is put before them, if it is put before them. And it is necessary, one of the many rules that Jim McMahon has put forward, it is necessary for at least one local authority which is involved in an area to put forward a scheme for him to consider it. I have my doubts that any local authority will agree to put forward that scheme. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is something I've never really agreed with. I think it's just a political party trying to point score and try and protect their future. But I've obviously, through the motion, you've heard the sort of people I'm talking with and dealing with. And there's a pretty strong rumour out there that this actually may not happen yet. The government actually have got no real plan. Jim McMahon seems to be going away and doing things on his own without actually being authorised by central government to actually be permitted to do what he's trying to do. So, to me, it just seems one major lash-up of somebody trying to point score, some political party trying to gain points and protect the future, with nobody actually having a specific plan of what they want to do, how they're going to do it, and absolutely no chance of it happening by November this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wallard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking purely at the three proposals that have been put before us, and from a personal point of view, I am very much strongly in favour of proposal C, which, in my mind, combining us with East Cams, unfortunately Peterborough City Council, but I do believe that combination will go a long way to safeguarding the rural nature of Fenland, along with East Cams, and shall I say, water down the effect of the urban takeover from Peterborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that since the current government came to power, they've made a lot of big mistakes, and a lot of those mistakes have been reflected in the public outcry. And I don't want to downplay any of the things they did that were mistakes. I do want to say, though, that I don't think anybody realises, or not many people realise, that this is the most destructive policy they've pursued. That ultimately, down the line, this is going to cause more damage to our people and our communities than anything else they've done. And there's some competition. But it's such a disastrous idea that will so dramatically damage the faith in local institutions, the ability for local institutions to try different things, to serve people in a way so that you know who your councillors are and they're right there with a power to actually make a difference. And I just think all of that is being thrown away for, I can't even understand the reason why they're doing it, to be honest with you. I don't personally think it will proceed. I think it will stop, but I accept I could easily be wrong. And I don't want to vote for any of these options, because although I do have a preference, I think they're all disastrous. Every one of them is disastrous. And I know the argument's going to be, if you don't speak up now, then they'll do something to you and you'll have had no say in it. Well, I think they're going to do whatever they want anyway, regardless of what we say. But I just don't see any value in supporting a thing that I think is utterly, utterly disastrous. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Thank you very much. As a principle, I do not agree with this because I believe, despite the propaganda by the government about promoting local democracy, I believe it will damage local democracy in that the representatives will get more and more remote. What has been proposed are huge wards. Currently, for example, the South Whittlesey ward is at least 9 miles long and probably 6 or 7 miles in width. Now, how logistically it would be possible to represent effectively the widespread rural areas is open to question. So I think it will put the representatives further and further away from the residents and therefore be more difficult to accurately articulate the residents' hopes and aspirations and concerns. Now, on the second point about the fourth option, I mean, there is a prima facie case for that. However, Councillor Bowden has poured cold water over that, and quite rightly so. But that said, I think if Peterborough seems to be featuring in all the three options, there are important differences between Peterborough and Fenland and Huntingdonshire and East Cambridgeshire. We are essentially rural areas, very widespread. We have cultural differences. I know I grew up in Peterborough, and it's a nice city, nice people. But their temperament, their expectations, their cultural understandings, their needs are not the same as those of Fenland or even Huntingdonshire. So, for example, they're running a huge debt. They owe lots of money. They put up their council taxes up to the maximum. They have huge parking charges. We in Fenland, we don't. We managed to keep our council tax down for the 7th successive year. I hope Councillor Bowden will correct me if I'm wrong. For all of these reasons, I would be opposed to all the three options. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you. I sort of similarly agree with Councillor Noaz because I think going in with Peterborough is going to be an absolute disaster for us, particularly Wisbech. Now, I know that's obviously a selfish perspective, but obviously that's an area I represent, and the reason being is because I think we will get so many of Peterborough's rough sleepers coming to Wisbech. They haven't really got any barrier now. They can just get on a bus and come down the A47, but the fact that Peterborough have to notify us and we could just send ours to Peterborough, I think has some stop on that. And I just worry that because of our cheaper housing, we'll see many more landlords crop up here and many more homeless people come here. I just think going in with Peterborough is an absolute disaster because they will pick the cheapest place, and the cheapest place to live in Fenland is Wisbech. And it will just exacerbate all of the social problems we've got there now and make them 10 times worse. So on that reason, I think it's an absolutely awful plan. And I've seen some people online actually been quite unpleasant saying, oh, well, the only reason people want to stop this is because, you know, there'll only be one councillor and they won't be on two. And I just think, what an absolutely awful thing to say. Like, I mean, maybe there are people that are thinking that. Obviously, I can't speak for every councillor, but I just think, why do people always have to turn everything into something really mean and actually completely overlook the facts? I mean, Fenland is, I mean, I'm not born here, right? And this is such an odd place, but in an actually really cool way. So, Fen people, and I now suppose I am one being here for like, you know, well over half my life now, are so strange in the sense that they are like, so scared of outsiders, but then also super fiercely loyal as well. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they won't, so they would at the same time give you like the shirt off their back if they needed, if you knew they needed help, while also being super skeptical of you. that's not really like any other places I've ever been. You know, you've got Wisbech, which is a beautiful town of lovely architecture, a real diamond in the rough. And yes, it has problems, but that's why our house prices aren't £500,000 or £600,000, and you can live in a beautiful place at an affordable price. You've got Chatteris, another lovely little town. Doesn't have a Chinese that delivers, but hasn't in the last 10 years, and maybe they'll get there one day. But, you know, that's an absolutely lovely place. And Whittlesea, doesn't know if it's in Peterborough, doesn't want to be, is it not? But again, a really, really nice town with so much going on, beautiful buildings, lovely residents, and obviously March. You know, it's always going to be a bit of a Wisbech March rivalry, but again, it's a lovely, beautiful place with lots of people that have lived there for many years. And that lovely, you know, the lovely river you've got through with the boats, I just think Finland is an absolutely wonderful place. And if we lose sight of that, you know, our villages, I always wondered when I was a kid, like, who wants to live in this little village in the absolute middle of nowhere? But the older I'm getting, the more that life is going to be for me, I think, because, you know, I can understand that and why people do want to have that lifestyle. But if we lose that, and I've not even done it even a quarter of the justice it deserves today, if we lose that, we will never get it back. We will just become a massive enclave of Peterborough. It just will be Peterborough. It won't be East Cambs, it won't be Fenland, it won't be Huntingdonshire, it will just be Peterborough, and we will lose Fenland's history forever.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Yes, this present government talks about localism, and actually what this reorganisation does is take that totally away from rural areas. It's vital for us to have a voice at the table, and we're likely to be very, very limited in that voice. Councillor Noir's touched on the fact that we haven't put up the council tax for 7 years. We have free parking in Fenland. That will go. The first thing that will happen will people's council tax will rise. The second thing they're talking about doing is devolving some of the jobs down as far as parish council level. If that happens, then the parish council precept will have to increase because clerks will have to do more work. That will cost more in salaries. So it's bad for rural areas all the way round. I like none of the options. I suppose if I was pushed, I'd agree with Councillor Woolard, and I'd say C, simply because it gives the rural areas more chance to have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I also think this is a disastrous policy by the current government. So much for localism. It's as far away from localism as you can get. However, if we do have to put in a proposal, I would be totally against proposal B because that puts us with 4 district councils, whereas proposal A and proposal C only puts us with 3. So we would be a lot larger with proposal 4, and I'd like to keep any unitary authority as small as we possibly can do. I also would possibly favour C, because I think we have more in common. Thank you.
Councillor Miscandley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. When I sat in your position a few years ago, when I used to travel around the area, people used to say to me, "What is Fenland?" And I'd say, it's 4 market towns and I think it's 13 villages, and every one of them is different, and I want to keep it that way. So I don't support any of these things. I just don't think it's a mishmash, and that's why the papers were sent to the leaders of the council and the chief executives just before Christmas. Have a Christmas present. We're going to ruin your Christmas, and they've been doing it ever since. Thank you.
Councillor Count, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Like many people that have already spoken, I don't agree with these proposals. I don't like the idea of this local government reform being imposed on us. But one place where we perhaps differ from some of the people here is to affect any change whatsoever, any influence whatsoever, you've got to be at the table. You have to discuss what's in front of us. I don't like what's in front of us, and they're dragging Chris kicking and screaming to the table. But if he's at the table, he's got to be able to say something. Now, what's in front of us today are the 3 options that have been narrowed down by the various leaders from their various points of view as to which way to go forward. But I don't think we're at the stage yet where we sit here and say we want A or B or C, because the proposal is actually to work up the business plans, which will give us some more financial information, as well as the geographical information, and perhaps some of the synergies that can or can't happen in that way. So I think it's too early to be saying definitively whether it's A, B or C, and I think that will come along later on. Now, as that comes along later on, I do absolutely sympathise with the person, I can't remember who said it, that it really doesn't matter what we say because government will pick the option that suits them. And I do agree with that. But the main point about being at the table for me isn't about this discussion about where they draw the lines, but it's about what happens afterwards and be part of that voice, what happens afterwards. Because none of the proposals in front of us leave us in with Cambridgeshire County Council, because Cambridgeshire County Council will be gone. All of the proposals put us to some degree with Peterborough City Council. And I know from past experience where all the bones are hidden at Cambridgeshire County Council. And some of those things are very punitive to Fenland. And if we're not at the table afterwards able to argue our corner, I'll give you an example, Fen damaged roads. So the repair bill for the highways at the County Council is about £420 million in deficit. So if they divide the highways budget afterwards per capita, some people might say that's okay. But when 300 million of that is directly on Fen roads, it's not okay. And we need a strong and powerful voice to be involved all the way along so they can highlight these inconsistencies on what happens afterwards, because we can't have it done to us at local level as well as at government level. So at the moment, I'm just going to wait and see how the business plans come out, but it's important that we give our leader the opportunity to be fully engaged, no matter how much we all resent it. And I think I haven't heard anybody speak in favour of this. I certainly don't. So, yeah, thank you for your time, but don't support this, but we have to move forward because it's forced on us at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. Local governance, I don't think is new. My father sat on the Isle of Ely Council and he was part of this, and I'm sure a lot of the comments were exactly the same. He was able to buy his seat for £1, which he left me in his will, which I've still got, so I may bring in and sit in that on the last day of this council, should it happen. My business sense tells me we would be better off keeping connected to Cambridge, because Cambridge is the stronger partner to me of the makeup of the district. But that isn't an option. So I'd really like to turn the tables on Councillor Bowden, if I may. He's been the one that's sitting in these negotiations. He's the one that's getting the feedback from the varying leaders, what they've got in mind, and ask him how his feeling is what the other councils are moving towards, what may be their preference. And I'd go to Councillor Counts when he was doing the combined authority. It's a moving feast, but that would probably help me to make up my mind what it's like at these meetings, and where are your colleagues in the makeup of these three options, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who hasn't already spoken? Councillor Mrs French, would you like to exercise your reserve right to speak? Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much indeed, and this has been an extremely useful and helpful debate. As has been said, no decisions are being made yet. We don't need to make our submission to government until the 28th of November. So in the autumn, when we have much more information, including business cases which will have been worked up on all of these, and we'll see the finances which are involved, the options will be made available to Council. Council will have a debate like this, and then Cabinet will make the decision immediately afterwards based on the considerations of Council. A number of very interesting points were raised by people. I think I'll start with the most recent one, which I still remember, is Councillor Clark's comments. When Councillor Clark's father was a councillor, there were 1,430 principal councils in England, and there were 55,000 councillors. Now there are only just over 300 principal councils in England, rather than that 1,430, and the number of councillors has gone down to below 17,000. Within 3 or 4 years' time, those numbers will be dramatically reduced even further. And we'll be in a situation where we have maybe one councillor for 5,000 electors, something like that. You compare that with other countries in Europe. Compare it with France. In France, in local government, they have one councillor per 130 electors. So the centralisation that government is doing, and they have the nerve to call it a devolution bill, the centralisation that they are undertaking is absolutely out of kilter, both with what people want and with what happens in the rest of the democratic West. Councillor Clark asked what other councils and other council leaders are saying. Well, when we do meet under Chatham House rules. And it's just as well because as I'll explain a bit later, I've very much changed my mind over the course of the last 6 months as discussions have taken place. So I can only say that even before any business case has been created, South Cambs District Council has had a meeting of council where they have agreed overwhelmingly they're going to go down the option B route, that is South Cambridgeshire and Cambridge City together, leaving the rest of us, Peterborough, Fenland, East Cambs and Huntingdonshire with our own unitary authority. They're the only ones who have actually formally come out and stated what their position is. On the others, I'm afraid I can't say anything other than the fact that we started with 6 or 7 options, and between us we whittled it down to these 3, which were, and some of you may not believe this, but these 3 were the best options which we had available given the constraints that central government had given us. Councillors Tierney and Taylor suggested that this may not happen at all. Now, the government has invested an astonishing amount of political capital into this process. Now, that's not to say they won't do an about-turn. They have about-turned on 1 or 2 issues since they took over a year ago. But they have put so much political capital into this, and I'm utterly astonished as to why. And it's been suggested, and it's not for me to say, but it's been suggested that since the Labour Party has very little political support, or relatively little political support in the Shire county areas right across the country, that managing to denude those areas of effective local representation does the Labour Party no great harm at all. Now, that may or may not be true, but it's very difficult to understand just why they are doing this destructive thing. Now, Councillors Davis, Hay, and Woolard all mentioned option C as being their preferred option, even if reluctantly given the choices which there are. And I have to admit that wasn't my initial preference. And I've only come around to it very much for some of the reasons which have already been given by members today. It's the one where Fenland will have the greatest voice. It's the one which will be the most rural of the options which we've got available to us. It's the one where Peterborough's influence, and by Peterborough I mean Peterborough city centre rather than the rural parishes around the edges of Peterborough City Council. It's the area where Peterborough city centre will have the least influence and the least sway. And I know, and I've heard today, and I've heard it in plenty of other places, that people saying, we don't want to join with Peterborough. Well, government is giving us no real option. Given the constraints that they have placed on the decision-making process, it's almost impossible to produce an option which would mean that we were not contained with Peterborough in a new unitary authority. Now, afraid that Councillor Tierney did say one thing which unfortunately is, I believe, very true. And that is, despite all of this work which is done, and already over £1 million has been set aside in the County Council to work on local government reorganisation, and that's merely to produce the proposals, not actually to do it. Despite all the money and all the time and all the effort and all the words which have gone into local government reorganisation already, and many more will over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, despite all of that, I think that Councillor Tierney is entirely correct. The government is going to end up doing what it wants anyway. And I'm sorry to be cynical, but they've been changing the rules to fit themselves as this process has gone through, and I'm quite confident that if they don't like something, they will just decide they're going to do something else. And I worry about what that something else might end up being, not merely for Fenland, but for the whole country, the whole country in the Shire district areas. So I think it's been a really constructive and useful debate which has taken place today. Ultimately, as Councillor Count said, if we're to have any influence at all, we need to play their game, unfortunately. But I think that Councillor Tierney is correct. We mustn't be under any illusion that they're going to play that game under fair rules. So let's not be over optimistic that what we decide is going to be what happens, but let's exercise what influence we can when we've got more information. And you do need to see that financial information for the three options we've got in front of us. Once we've got more information, let's just see which of those really stands out to be the best for us. And it's not just a financial matter, of course, it also is a matter of the identity that we've got here in Finland and the risk to that identity, which has also been mentioned by members today. And all of those things, I'm sure, will be taken into account by members of this council when we meet again in the autumn to discuss the three options and to work out which of those three we should propose to government as being the least worst. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The recommendation is on page 84 of the agenda pack and is for full council to provide feedback to Cabinet to support ongoing dialogue within the LGR process. As outlined at the commencement of this item, the debate will be fully minuted so that the views expressed can continue to be considered. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 11 is the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report, which can be found on pages 93 to 102 of the agenda. I will now call upon Councillor Davis as Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is a legal requirement for each local authority to set up a scrutiny process as a function of the council. Fenland District Council currently has a single overview and scrutiny panel, and the function for which is responsible set out in Procedure Rule 5 of the Constitution. As a matter of good governance and in the delivery of my role as Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel, it is my pleasure to present the annual report 2024-25 and to look forward to 25-26. Over the last municipal year and during my second term as Chair, the panel welcomed Councillor Hicks as a new member. Working together, the Overview and Scrutiny Panel has sought to diligently fulfil its important role in overseeing the performance and delivery of services. We've had a busy and varied year, receiving and scrutinising information from Cabinet and officer colleagues, partners and outside bodies. We have benefited from detailed presentations complemented by pertinent question and answer sessions, as well as an informative update training session in relation to scrutinising the budget. Looking ahead, the future work programme will be published with the agenda for each meeting and will continue to focus on issues that are of paramount importance to local residents and businesses. This will include the return of some long-standing annual items such as the budget, business plan and a review of core services, but there will also be opportunities to consider matters of emerging importance as the year progresses. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has played a part in contributing towards the work of the panel this year. I'm looking forward to continuing my role as Chair, and I remain confident that the panel can maintain the high standards expected of it and that it will continue to work with colleagues and partners to make a positive difference to the people of Fenland. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Meekins, thank you. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the end?
Reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Meekins, would you like to?
Nothing to add to the report, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, would you like to sum up? No? Thank you. Thank you. The recommendation is on page 93 of the agenda pack and is for full council to note the report. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 12 of the agenda concerns proposed amendments to the Constitution, and the report is on pages 103 to 134. I will now call upon Councillor Hoy to present the report.
Thank you. So the report hopefully is fairly self-explanatory with the changes, but just the key change really is currently if someone wants to apply for a street consent, it is just an officer decision, and this change makes it a licensing subcommittee decision, just to give that member oversight and the openness and transparency in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Sorry. Councillor Senate-Clough, thank you. Would you like to speak? Reserve, thank you. Councillor Hoy? Sorry, the item is open for debate. Councillor Senate-Clough, would you like to speak?
Nothing to add, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. I don't think there's anything really to say extra, so thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation is on page 103 of the agenda pack and is for full council to approve the proposed changes as set out in the appendices and to authorise the monitoring officer to make the necessary changes to the Constitution. Is that agreed? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's meeting. I would like to thank you for your attendance and remind you that the next ordinary meeting for full council will take place on Monday the 15th of September 2025 at 4 p.m. Members are also politely requested please to vacate the chamber as quickly as possible, as the next meeting of Cabinet is due to commence shortly.